Right. Okay, thank you, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to wish everyone a Happy New Year and all the best for 2026. Also, would like to thank all emergency services for their efforts fighting the fires in the Lerderderg State Forest, and obviously with Councillor Bingham, who was there earlier today. Moving along, councillors, officers and members of the public, welcome to the 4th of February 2026 Ordinary Meeting of Council. I will now open the meeting with the first item of this evening's agenda, the reading of the prayer. Thank you, Councillor Berry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Almighty God, be with us as we work for the people of the Shire of Moorabool. Grant us wisdom that we may care for the Shire as true stewards of your creation. May we be aware of the great responsibilities placed upon us. Help us to be just in all our dealings, and may our work prosper for the good of all. Amen.
Thank you. I will now read the acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here today. In accordance with Moorabool Shire Council's governance rules, the Council will be recording and live streaming this meeting. The Moorabool News and Star Weekly have also been granted permission to record this meeting. I can confirm that all councillors are present with Councillor Sullivan online. Councillors, confirmation of the last minutes. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Minari, seconder Councillor Keogh. All in favour? Carried unanimous. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. We have one item 12.1 with Councillor Sullivan.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I have a conflict in item 12.1 in that one of the properties cited in the that heritage study is our own property. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keogh?
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Turn on your microphone.
Perceived conflict of interest in item 3.3, the Griffith Street Northern Shared Path.
.3. Thank you. There are no public questions to this meeting. We have no petitions to consider at this meeting. We don't have any registered speakers to this meeting either, so we'll move along to item 11.1, Procurement Australia Contract Provisions of Temporary and Permanent Recruitment Services. Are there any questions, councillors?
Mr Mayor, sorry.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was sort of amazed at the percentage that these groups actually charge for employment, and it led me to think, do we have a HR department at council? So that's my first question. And is this the only way that we do recruit temporary or permanent staff? So my second question. And my third question is, may everyone take it on notice, how much have we paid out in fees in the last year or two to consultants for temporary and permanent employee replacement?
I hand that over to Mr Jackson.
Through the chair, so coming back to the questions, I think there were three questions. First question, just...
I'll repeat them if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
The first one was, do we have a internal HR divisional personnel at council? So that'll be the first one, please.
The answer to that is yes, Councillor Sullivan.
Okay. And is this the only way that we recruit or backfill positions for either permanent or part-time employees or temporary replacement to use these consultant agencies? Or do we use other methods as well?
We can potentially use other methods. It's dependent on the length of temporary employment. This panel that's been put together is exclusively for what we would classify as emergency employment gaps, so where it's very urgent.
Okay. Okay, thank you. My third question, if I may, is what would we have spent on these consultants in the last, no, this is the one I need to take on notice, in the last year or two?
And I will take that question on notice, Councillor Sullivan.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Can I get a mover on that? Councillor Kerr. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Berry. All in favour? Carried. Item 11.2, 2017 to 2021 Moorabool Shire Council Plan Outstanding Progress Report, Quarter 2, 1st of October to the 31st of December 2025. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I have a question, and it relates to, for those councillors following page 6 in your attachments. And it's a question for Lee McCallum, please. Sorry, this is a Phil Jeffrey question. Item 1.5.1 was to develop and implement a policy on allocation, use and trading of water for council water assets. I noticed this item started in 2017. The latest update is a draft water trading policy has now been completed and is currently undergoing internal review, with adoption anticipated within the first quarter of 26. I just wanted to confirm that'll be the case, because it has been something that has raised some discussion in recent times, and I know Councillor Sullivan has also asked questions about it. So I just after an update and confirmation that we can expect that in first quarter of 26, please.
Through you, Mr Mayor. In terms of a draft, I have received a draft and we are currently reviewing it. In terms of the second part around receiving it through council in the first quarter, I think it will go beyond that by the time we schedule it not as an agenda item for council. There might be a briefing in the first quarter potentially, but it'll be, if not the first quarter, April, May.
Norris. Anyone second that? Councillor Freeman. All in favour? Carried. Moving along, 11.3, 2021 to 25 Moorabool Shire Council Plan Outstanding Progress Report, Quarter 2, 1st of October to the 31st of December 2025. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a question for Officer Lee McCallum, please. It was a fantastic achievement late last year to reform the Local Business Advisory Committee, which Councillor Tatchell and I sit on. And one of the things that's very important to that committee is our investment attraction perspectives strategy. Noting that there was an update given there, and I suppose I'm just after an update from Lee on when this draft strategy will be presented and hopefully finalised, and we can present to the Local Business Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, the draft investment attraction strategy is actually in its final form. However, with the Parwin Employment Precinct becoming an active planning consideration, that strategy has been put on hold pending the outcome of that process. And that's really on the basis that the Parwin Employment Precinct will have a significant input and contribution to the outcomes of the investment attraction strategy.
No worries. Can I get someone to move that? Someone to second? Councillor Bingham? Okay. All in favour? Carried. Unanimous. Moving along, item 11.4, 2025 to 29 Moorabool Shire Council Plan Progress Report, Quarter 2, 1st of October to the 31st of December 2025. Are there any questions, councillors? Can I get someone to move that? Councillor Kerr. Second. Councillor Berry. All in favour? Carried. Moving along, 12.1, that's your conflict of interest. Councillor Sullivan.
Mr Mayor, as noted earlier in the agenda of the meeting, I would note the conflict of interest in item 12.1. And again, I'll restate that this is the West Moorabool Heritage Study incorporates the the property that we live in. So I'll just sort of make that, and I think governments will disconnect me for a while and reconnect me after the meeting, if that's okay. Thank you.
No worries, thank you. Okay, councillors, is there any questions? Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Ward. Seconder, Councillor Keogh. All in favour? Carried. We'll get him back. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving along, 13.1, advocacy projects and initiatives. I'll ask the councillors for any questions. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just have one question. I wasn't at the briefings, sorry, and I looked over it. I know when we had the advocacy day, there was a whole lot of other items. One that I did put up was the Anzac Way. So are all those still listed as advocacy projects?
Who wants to?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Berry, we have included the ones that out of the 19 projects that were identified, we have actually put some of those in the document. That particular project is on the other advocacy. The major projects are at the front of the document, and then we have the smaller projects, and it's on that page. Some of those projects are identified and not in the document because they require further work, but the Anzac Walk is in the document.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, councillors? I'll get someone to, Tom, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologise. I can't, well, the hand display icon is not available, so I have to physically raise my hand, so I apologise for that. I have sort of reviewed the document. The question I have is, would it be a difficult task to incorporate into the document a plan that shows the physical boundaries of the state and federal electoral boundaries that cover Wirral Shire, to put the location of projects into context? And also, would it be difficult where those projects are under major, minor, etc., be denoted as to what electoral areas that those projects where they're located?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Sullivan, we certainly can take that on advisement for future versions of the document.
Well, so I was thinking more of the current version than future version. That's somewhere in the offing. I'm just saying it's a difficult task to do it with this one. Or do I need to move a formal amendment once it sort of gets up to have that incorporated?
Councillor Sullivan, we are recommending adoption of the document tonight in its current form. So we would require an amendment.
Yeah, okay, fine.
We'll get
Mm-hmm.
Mr Jackson to answer that as well.
So through the chair, the intention of the document is not to be a static document, and it will require amendment from time to time. So there is an opportunity to potentially adopt it today with the potential for that change in the future. Alternatively, we could revisit this.
Well, question, if I may, Mr.
Yep.
Nicholas. That future revision that Mr. Jackson has articulated, what would be the ETA on that? Approximately.
I would imagine that we could have those boundaries done in quite a short period of time. Yep.
Okay. Again, not wish to labour on the point. What are we looking at, say, 3 months, 6 months?
No, I'd imagine that we could have that done within 4 weeks.
Okay, no, that's fine. No, just thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
And subsequently,
Yep.
if I may, this is quite enjoyable actually being on screen. It's just sort of, like holding court. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We do miss you.
I'm sure. I'm sure you do, sorry. Just for my own, and I'm not saying incorporate into the document, and other councillors may be interested or not, and it's only for my own edification, could I also receive a map that overlays the previous ward boundaries over that map to sort of see where these projects are located?
Through the chair, just to clarify the question, Councillor Sullivan, that's a personal request or that's a request to have
Well,
that?
I'm just saying I don't wish it to be incorporated in the document.
Yep.
But all I'm just saying, other councillors may not be interested. What I'm asking, is it possible to have the previous ward boundaries overlaid over the map where these projects are located, so I can, just see from my own information where they sit across Moorabool Shire?
Through the chair, absolutely. Yes.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any further questions? I'll get someone to move that. Councillor Bingham. And Councillor Carey for second. All in favour? Carried. Moving along, 14.1, response to notice of motion number 327, flooding issues, Lay Court, Walsh Street and Nicholson Road, Balan. Councillors, are there any questions? No questions? Can I get someone to move that? Councillor Berry. Second? Councillor Carey. All in favour? Carried. Moving along, 14.2, draft Moorabool Shire Council Community Roads Safety Strategy. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've previously raised my concerns about the reduction in the financial assistance grants from the Commonwealth, which used to be pegged at 1% of taxation revenue collected. Over the past 30 years, it's dropped now to 0.5%, which affects the grants that local government can collect. And I think those reduction in grants is making it very, very difficult for local government. So my question is for Mr Jeffries, and I'm happy for him to take it on notice, is that in our council, Mr Jeffrey, obviously our road network has grown as our population has grown, yet we're not eligible for growing suburbs funding. I notice obviously rate capping has been exceeded by CPI, so our ability to maintain our roads in a condition that to ensure road safety is very, very limited. Could I please have a benchmark on what the costs may have been for road constructions or repavements? Obviously noting that the cost of concrete, asphalt, steel and labour have potentially doubled over that period of time. Can I have a cost, can you prepare for council a cost per kilometre for the road resurfacing and renovations from 2006 and then 10 years later in 16 and then potentially in 2026, please?
Mr Jeffrey. Take that on notice.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'll take that on notice. I guess we can do it. We'd have to dig deep to get some of that historical data, but we can try. But there's also the local government performance reporting framework that exists that compares construction costs against other councils too, which we could use for some benchmarking.
Councillor Ward.
I'm happy to move the notice of motion for this recommendation with a comment, if I may, Mr Mayor. And my comment is, understandably, the government attacks driver behaviour, and driver behaviour is certainly the cause of accidents. But it was interesting in reading this road safety strategy, 76% of the respondents expressed concern that road conditions were causing accidents. So I think it's okay for the government to attack driver behaviour, but I think we need to push back and say road conditions is a contributing factor. And in our road safety strategy, it's quite obvious that the reduction in funding from the Commonwealth Government is an issue. Thank you.
No worries. Any further questions? Anyone to move? Councillor Ward to move it. Anyone to second? Councillor Minari. All in favour? Carried unanimous. Okay. There are no other reports. Moving along to notice of motion 16.1, notice of motion 346, investigation into the feasibility of establishing a bereaved parent support group within the Moorabool Shire. Councillor Freeman, do you want to
Thank you,
speak
Mr
on
Mayor.
that?
I'd like to put forward a motion for Council prepare a report on the feasibility of establishing a bereaved parent support group within Moorabool Shire, delivered as a non-clinical, community-based peer support program. That the report considers, but not be limited to, potential delivery models, including integration with maternal and child health and enhanced maternal and child health services, partnership opportunities with relevant specialist not-for-profit organisations, governance, safeguarding, risk management and insurance requirements, anticipated demand and eligibility considerations, the feasibility of providing access to an appropriate council facility at no cost, subject to availability and policy, external grant funding opportunities to support the initiative, including grants that may fund bereavement information and support pack for parents, age-appropriate books and resources for siblings following the loss of a baby, community-based engagement activities and peer support initiatives for bereaved fathers, including group programs or events, and any resourcing or financial implications for council. This motion does not commit council to funding, provision of facilities or implementation, and that any future decision would be subject to consideration of the report.
Thank you. Obviously, you'll move that motion.
Motion.
Is there anyone that will second that? Councillor Kerr. Is there anyone that wants to speak against? Councillor Barrett?
Yeah.
Speaking against, but I just got a question of officers. Thanks, Mr Mayor. I think for Lee, I note that Councillor Freeman has said no commitment to council funding. I understand there is a bereavement group in Bacchus Marsh at the moment that's funded through Western Health. It's not specific to this. So will the report be complete with whether the funding we can then get through the state government, through Western Health?
Through the chair, through the report from officers, we would look to explore all funding sources as part of preparing the report, and that would certainly pick up any existing funding that Western Health currently provides for that particular group that you're referring to.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Sullivan?
Mr Mayor, I would speak against the motion.
Yep. Councillor Sullivan?
Well, the mover has to speak first,
Yep.
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Freeman?
Need a seconder, don't you?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council has received a detailed proposal from a mother, a local resident, parent advocate and social worker who has lived experience of perinatal loss. This proposal recommends that establishment of a bereaved parent support group overseen by the Enhanced Maternal and Child Health Program and delivered in partnership with a specialist not-for-profit organisation. The proposal emphasises trauma-informed practice, lived experience, facilitation and the use of existing infrastructure to minimise costs. Perinatal loss, including miscarriage, stillbirth and neonatal death, affects a significant number of families each year. National data indicates that the rate of stillbirth in Australia has not decreased over the past 2 decades. Parents experiencing perinatal loss face an elevated risk of trauma, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder and suicide. While clinical care is typically provided at the time of loss, evidence indicates that many bereaved parents are not routinely linked with ongoing support following hospital discharge. In Moorabool Shire, access to non-clinical, community-based bereavement support is limited, with families often facing long wait times or out-of-pocket costs for services outside the public health system. Historically, a peer-based bereavement support program operated informally within council facilities through the Maternal and Child Health Network. This group provided connection, validation and support for bereaved parents, but ceased following staff changes and the absence of formal program resourcing. Perinatal loss presents complex and long-term impacts on parents' mental health and well-being. While hospital-based clinical care is available at the time of the loss, evidence indicates a gap in ongoing non-clinical and community-based support, particularly in peri-regional municipalities such as Moorabool Shire. Peer-supported bereavement programs, particularly those delivered in person and integrated within maternal and child health frameworks, have been shown to reduce isolation, stigma and psychological distress. Council has previously hosted an informal peer support group through the Maternal Child and Health Network, demonstrating both community demand and feasibility when supported by appropriate governance and resourcing. The proposed motion seeks a measured, evidence-based approach by requesting an officer report to explore delivery options, partnerships, governance requirements and resourcing implications without preempting funding commitments. I commend this notice of motion.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan? Seconder? Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Thank you. I understand that this motion is actually, this notice of motion rather, is calling for a report on a very, very sensitive issue. And I think it's one that I'm not quite sure whether council ongoing has the capability or the expertise to actually be involved in programs like that. There are specialist groups out there who actually do this already, and I'm just concerned that it may be doubling up. And I think it was raised by my fellow councillor, lived experience. I mean, there are people in this room and elsewhere who have lived experience in this, and we know only too well what this means. I'm just sort of concerned that we may be getting into something that is sort of outside our pay scale as a council, and one that, you know, if you start getting into some of this, it's very, very sensitive to these specialist people involved in it. So I'm just concerned we may be cutting across other agencies who deliver on this, and that wouldn't, in my view, deliver the good service or for the communities of Moorabool. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Kerr?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I commend very strongly Councillor Freeman's notice of motion. Having been like other councillors in this room through a situation quite similar to that, what Sheila Freeman is trying to do, as I've already said, I commend her fully for it. She is really only asking for a report on the feasibility of an establishment of a bereaved parent support group, and I think our officer's report will also take into account what Councillor Sullivan was saying, and at the end of the day, we should finish up with a very successful way that we can look after bereaved parents very early on in their bereavement, not letting it drag on and drag on and drag on. And it's very important that it be done early and quickly. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Is there any... Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I must say I'm surprised and somewhat disappointed we're debating this. As Councillor Freeman pointed out, we are looking at the feasibility of establishing a support group. Our role as councillors is to ensure we're there and we're protecting and servicing the best interests of our ratepayers and people that are going through and may have the need for this. We consider this a very high priority. We're not committing council resources. We have a very, very important responsibility to make sure that we spend the limited amount of revenue we have on achieving the best outcomes. I take on board what Councillor Sullivan has said, but I think Councillor Sullivan, in his comments, actually spoke about why we should be doing this report. Councillor Sullivan said there may be programs and groups out there that do offer this. Well, I'm sure that'll get discovered in the report and identified in the report and highlighted. So I think this is a wonderful initiative, and I commend Councillor Freeman, and I think it is, it's disappointing it's being debated. Thank you.
Thank you,
Point of order,
Councillor.
Mr Mayor. Point of order.
Yes.
I don't need a lecture from my fellow councillor in the response I make, so I just didn't put that on notice, please.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I didn't want to talk to this tonight. I really didn't want to talk to it at all. And in fact, I think this matter, of all matters, probably should have been managed in confidential, to be honest. But I am going to talk to it. I've got nothing against finding funding and resources for these matters. In fact, it's taken a lot of decades for people to actually get resources to deal with these issues, and they're dealt with a lot differently today than when they were many years ago. And I think we need to be really, really careful as a council when you take on any form of responsibility with regards to this matter. And I think we need to be very, very careful how it's discussed as well. And just to be clear, when we're asking to take a lead or get a report on a matter like this, we need to be extraordinarily careful that we're not punching above our weight limit. This is one of the most complex processes that any parent could go through, and not just from a one-sided perspective. And it's not just about stillborns, it's also about children that are taken from us. And, you know, we talk about disappointment. I think that's a really tough word to be thrown around here tonight in this matter. And just to give an example of the work that's gone on over the last number of decades, to try and help people through this process, and also understand that the complicity and the long-term effects, not just on each individual, because a lot of these things end up with a knock-on effect that is lifelong for one or the other partner. And in fact, some of the issues that surround this are far more complex than any council is ever going to have to deal with. And at the moment we have, you know, look, I'm not going to not commend anything about finding support for people in this position, but if you look at what's available to now and what's been developed and the funding that's gone into these processes to try and help these people, we've got the Compassionate Friends of Victoria, which has largely dealt with men in this process that for a number of years were expected to stand back because of the loss. Of course, Red Nose Australia has done an enormous job with SIDS. The Australian Centre for Grief and Bereavement have always been fantastic in terms of making sure people got that support at the right time. The Hope of Bereavement Care, we've got one based at Geelong here that offers that professional services and support in those incredibly difficult times. The Mercy Grief Services down at Sunshine provides us with specialised counselling for individuals and families in Western Melbourne, including our regions, and have done a fantastic job over the years. And I don't want to confuse that with a group of people that come together to work their way through this process. And I don't think we should be confusing it in council from an official base either. I think we need to understand and support those people and make sure that they have that capacity to meet, but we also need to make sure that these resources are available. And it'd be remiss not to mention the Royal Children's Hospital and the work that they've done over the years to try and reach out to people that probably in the past haven't been within reach. And of course, on top of all that, we have a 24/7 man grief lines and TCFV lines that are there for these people. And to deal with the consequences that have knocked on from these arrangements. And anyone who's been there would know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not against the project, it's not against the ideal, and it's not against the goodwill of this. But we need to recognise that it's extraordinarily complex. It is complex to the point where if we start to get involved in these things and there's an expectation that we have expertise in this area, we also end up taking some form of responsibility. And so I have some serious concerns. I do commend Councillor Freeman on the complicity in trying to do something. But I think we need to be really careful, and after reading the sort of draft on what's being requested in terms of that report, I think we need to be really, really careful on this one. And look, I know from me as a council, I'm not ready to be voting for something like this at this point, and I'm sure there's others that aren't. But and it's not that I'm against it. I just have some serious concerns. I don't want to. The great work that's been done over a very long period of time, we need to be very careful we don't dabble, put our feet in the water, and interfere with some of those processes that may happen based on a few letters or some things closing down. I think we need to talk to these people and make sure that these numbers are front and centre. Look, that's all I want to say about it, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Is there anyone else? Councillor Minari?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention one thing. I just wish this had come to us in a different way, because, you know, I'm a big one for staying in our lane, and this clearly, to me, sits in state government lane. And I would have liked to have seen state government come to us and say, do you have a facility? Can we partner with you? Can we, you know, we'll bring the professionalism, we'll bring the professionals, we'll bring, you know, the expertise, but can you help us in the smaller things? So that's why I can't support this tonight, because I've been a stickler for staying in our lane, because there's a lot to do in our space, and I just feel that this is too big for us, too big. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Berry?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It is a very difficult subject. I met with the lady also, and I did some reading myself on the research, and there is some sort of funding, but it's not on a group session type of situation. It's so history. I spoke to an expert on this. Said history has shown that a lot of people like to meet on a single basis, and that's apparently how the funding is worked at present. But there was some funding available for group sessions out there. So very, very torn myself. Looking at all the ABCD and the feasibility of providing access, all that's written here. I'd be interested in a report, and so that's why I'm torn, just to see if potentially what comes back we can clearly see, or we don't see, that we can do anything for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. I'll pass it over to Mr Spiteri.
Through the chair, I just wanted to make a comment that obviously the governance rules do not allow a notice of motion to affect new expenditure or to initiate a new service by council. So my reading of the notice of motion doesn't, should this get up, doesn't commit council to any new expenditure or any new service. All it's committing to, as is my reading, is for proper research and analysis of the services that are available within our community and to come back to council with recommendations. So we're not locked into an outcome other than a report with further research and analysis.
Thank you. Any further councillors would like to speak? I'll get you to close off, Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. When I met with the parent, her message was, upon my closure with Joan Kerner, there was minimal engagement regarding support for my loss. The focus was on my son. She had twins. She lost one. I want to bring the debate back to first principles. This motion is not about council stepping beyond its role, nor is it about committing scarce resources. It's about whether we are willing to explore a low-cost, community-led response to a well-documented gap in support, guided by evidence, professional expertise and lived experience. The proposal before us is supported by a resident who is not only a bereaved parent, but also a trained social worker and counsellor, prepared to contribute her time and expertise at no cost to council. That generosity does not remove the need for governance or safeguards, and this motion explicitly recognises that by asking officers to assess risk, insurance and appropriate partnerships, local government plays a critical role in connection, prevention and community wellbeing. We have our wellbeing advisory committees. Providing access to a room, if appropriate and feasible, is not an unreasonable thing for council to examine, particularly when weighed against the potential benefit for families who are otherwise navigating grief in isolation. If the report shows the proposal is not viable, council retains full discretion to say no. But choosing not to investigate at all would mean turning away from a thoughtful, professional and community-driven proposal without even asking the question. I believe this council can act with both compassion and discipline. This motion allows us to do exactly that. Before I close, I will talk about history. When I read this proposal, it brought back memories for me. My son was born 50 years ago this year. We were very fortunate because he survived. But he was born 10 to 12 weeks prem, not breathing. The wonderful nursing staff breathed for him for 40 minutes, then they had to give up, but by some miracle he commenced breathing on his own. I spent about 2 months in hospital whilst my 2 other children were being cared for by their father and extended family. I clearly remember thinking I wouldn't cope if my baby died, as my parents had lost a child at birth. My sister was born in the UK during the war in 1942. She did not survive. Dad always remembered and spoke of her on her birthday, being March the 9th. Mum never spoke of her, and I believe this was because she never dealt with the loss. Dad said that she was buried near a wall. When my mother died in 2015, I found a website in the UK, Brief Lives Remembered, who said that they were volunteers working with parents and families who lost babies from 1940 to the 1980s to locate burial sites. I joined this group and am still a member. I asked them to locate my sister. But as my maiden name was Smith, I didn't hold out much hope of the grave being located. But within days they advised that my sister had been located. That year we went back to the UK and I was able to visit my sister's grave and visit a memorial that Brief Lives Remembered organised for me. It was very emotional as my sister was always with us, but not knowing where she was affected our family. It's not only mums that are affected by the loss of a child, but dads and siblings. We would never have found her except for these exceptional and dedicated volunteers and Mr Google. I commend this motion to Council and ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. I'll go all in favour? Carried.
Division.
All in favour, stand. Councillor Keogh, Councillor Bingham, Councillor Berry, Councillor Freeman, Councillor Ward, Councillor Venditti Taylor. All against? Councillor Minari, Councillor Tatchell and Councillor Sullivan. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, 16.2, notice of motion number 347, state government and LGA representative bodies, VLGA and MAV, to provide increased professional development opportunities for councillors to reduce the financial burden upon councillors and ratepayers. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I won't speak for long. Over 5 years as a councillor now, and I've seen a significant reduction in the training and professional development opportunities offered by MAV and the VLGA, to the point where councils are now hiring or contracting specialist bodies to provide those opportunities to councillors where they perceive that there is a gap. So I would like, the purpose of this notice of motion is that we write to the VLGA and the MAV saying we pay significant fees to be members of those organisations, and we would like to see an increase in the professional development and training opportunities for councillors, because when I started, Mr Mayor, you could log on for 2 or 3 hours and do an online development course on any given topic, and now there's very, very, very few topics available. So we talked about earlier about spending ratepayers' money prudently, and I think that if the VLGA and the MAV pick up the baton, that will free up council resources to spend revenue on other items. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Can I get someone to second that? Councillor Freeman. Is there anyone to speak against that? Question? Question, Councillor Tatchell.
The current funds that we pay VLGA and MAV, I've got 2 questions. Do we actually pay for that training now?
Take that one.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, the training that we're doing now through VLGA and MAV, are we paying for that now?
Unfortunately, I'd have to take that question on notice. I think we do, but I'm not 100% sure, unless, Joe, you have any understanding?
The Chair, I believe we do pay a fee for training.
I do believe we, yeah.
So the next question will be, if it's expanded, I assume we still have to pay?
Through the Chair, I would imagine so, yes.
And the third question is that we have representatives of these bodies like the MAV has a question on, in terms of future training being forwarded to the representative to put it up as a motion at the MAV.
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
So we have a representative
Yes.
at the MAV, and the question is, has the question of further training been brought up as a motion through the representative to the MAV?
I would need to take that question on notice. I believe we have representatives on the MAV, whether they may be able to answer that question.
Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Not to my knowledge, but I do note, picking up on the theme of Councillor Tatchell's discussion, there is an MAV meeting coming up in May. So I'm just sort of suggesting whether Moorabool Shire would like to craft a motion to sort of explore what Councillor Ward is touching upon with respect to that agency and the consent to be able to provide greater training. So I'm just suggesting that maybe a way to formalise the motion, not speaking against the motion, but to actually formalise the position so that we take it to the next level. So I'm just putting that forward.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Is there any more questions while we're here? Councillor Tatchell? Thanks, mate.
On that basis, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move this notice of motion, but I do like Councillor Tatchell's and Councillor Sullivan's suggestion. So if I could move it with an addition, an amendment. Point 2, that we also ask our delegates to raise this item at the next meeting of the MAV and the VLGA, please.
Yep. Councillor Sullivan?
Mr Mayor, sorry, just to add to what if I may, just to add to what,
yep.
I think council needs to formally adopt a motion which will then be forwarded to the MAB. So that's something that could be done offline and then come back for adoption by council. So it sort of keeps where council Ward wants to go with this. I can't bring it up myself. It needs to be the council that brings it to the MAB. I'm just suggesting we have the state council meeting in May. So there's opportunity to have a motion crafted by council and adopted and be put forward. So I'm just saying, bringing those two threads together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Thank you. We'll move it forward. Move it, Councillor Ward, with the amendments. Someone to second that? Councillor Freeman, all in favour? Carried. Moving along, 16.3, notice of motion number 348, reports on the establishment of a Moorabool Shire Council Intercultural Advisory Committee. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This notice of motion emanated from a discussion I had, and I believe other councillors have had, with representatives of the Diwali festival after their festival. And I know that when I moved with my family, my father who got a job in Bacchus Marsh in 1985, Bacchus Marsh was a small country town of predominantly Anglo-Saxons. But as Bacchus Marsh has grown, the diversity in Bacchus Marsh has grown, as has the diversity in Victoria. And Victoria is famed for its multiculturalism. And I think the biggest highlight of this is the Indian population in Bacchus Marsh has tripled over the last 5 years, and it will continue to grow, not just in Bacchus Marsh, but throughout Moorabool, and there'll be more diversity. And I think if you look at our subcommittees, our CAC committees, our advisory committees, we have advisory committees and committees for everything: positive ageing, youth, art and collection, eco-development, heritage advisor, environmental and sustainability, Bacchus Marsh Era Rome, disability access and inclusion, district trails, Lel Falls, and so on and so on and so on. And I think it's got to the point now where we actually would benefit significantly from an intercultural advisory committee. So I've looked around at other councils that have them and seen the role they fill, and they not just assimilate, help new residents assimilated from diverse backgrounds, but they help existing residents understand what, for example, a Diwali festival is and how they can go along and enjoy the day and what the traditions may be. And if you walk into this temple, you take your shoes off. Things like that. So I think that this report would just explore that opportunity and come back with some items for us to consider further. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Anyone to second that? Councillor Freeman. Are there any questions or anyone would like to speak against that? Councillor Tatchell. A question? No, I don't. You're going against? Yeah, no worries. Councillor Ward. I
suppose I'll just repeat what I said. Moorabool Shire Council values our diversity, and the diversity is growing. The population is currently 39,000, and the population of Bacchus Marsh will exceed that over the next 2 decades. The diversity increase has come from various backgrounds. The percentage of overseas-born residents has grown from 14%, and a further 11% of Mirraboo's population have arrived in Australia within the last 5 years. So it's growing significantly. Acknowledging our rich Aboriginal heritage, I believe Mirraboo, which we recognise and pay tribute to, I reckon we need to also embrace diverse ages, genders, abilities, alongside diverse backgrounds and multiculturalism. So the objectives of the committee would be to facilitate support, particularly on the basis of equitable access, to be a broad-based representation of community groups, and to provide a forum to articulate issues and needs to better ensure understanding across the community and council. It's not committing, and they were an example of the objectives. I'm not preempting what the objectives of this committee could be if we were going to do it, but I gave examples of what other councillors have put up, Mr Mayor. So I'll give you a simple example. My background has been in sport, recreation and youth, and traditionally throughout Victoria, we've built football overs with 4 sticks at each end. And if we're having growing multiculturalism in Mirraboo, we may identify the need to cater for a recreational pursuit for our growing diverse communities that traditionally we haven't offered, and it could be something that is identified from an intercultural advisory committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Councillor Tatchell. Thanks, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. It's nothing against the proposal, though. It's interesting, every year we sit down and we go through what committees to keep and which ones to relieve ourselves of. It's interesting that we have all these, you might have noticed the theme, I'm not a fan of notices of motion. I don't know whether you noticed that theme or not, but I think it divides council, but hey, let's do it. My view on this is very simple. Nobody does it better. I'll channel Shirley Bassey. Nobody does it better than ethnic people when they come together and they run their own race. And we're going to set up a committee to do it better than what they do. The fact is that the Indian population do a magnificent job, but they do it themselves. You know, they put it together. If they want something, they bring it to council, and it works out fantastic. It's a pity more groups don't do that, but the overall theme as a councillor is we don't look at colour, creed, religion. That's not part of our purview. Our role is pretty basic, and we've seen that tonight. It's interesting, we've had 2 discussions tonight. One's about the urgency of road safety, and we need to get reports in quickly, and we're running out of dough, and, you know, this all comes back to knowing your knitting and knowing what your job is. And every time we drag this stuff in and we ask for a report, we pull officers away from whatever tasks we're trying to get through to try and get these things sorted, and these daily problems that we're not getting to because we keep loading up with notices of motion that really could have been resolved at next year's when we sit down and decide what committees we want. And maybe that's something we get up and we have a discussion. We don't have to bring it to a notice of motion. We don't have to debate it. All we really got to do is say, do we want this thing? Do they want this thing? And once they get it, is there somebody else that wants this thing? And ultimately, we've seen over the years that a number of these committees have dropped off because of that famous Shirley Bassey line. Nobody does it better than the people that want these things, the people that belong to these things. They're the ones that'll bring it to council. If we start taking it to them, they'll stop bringing it to us. And that's a super concern from where I sit. So, yeah, quite. You can give an officer another job if you like, but let's not complain a month's time when we're waiting for something else, when all of our officers have been diverted by notices of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My background is also in multicultural. I've worked in the areas of Footscray, Sunshine, as a community worker financial counselling, housing, and a multitude of things, and have always been involved with different councils, with intercultural advisory committees, and I think they are needed. Moorabool is growing rapidly and changing demographically. That's not ideology, it's a fact. Our responsibility as councillors is to ensure our engagement and advisory structures remain fit for purpose as that changes occur. I'm also a migrant, maybe an Anglo-Saxon, but I have gone through the system. We plan ahead for roads, drainage and community infrastructure. Planning for social cohesion and effective engagement should be treated with the same seriousness, not as something we react to only when a problem arises. Some may argue that council already consults widely, and that's true, but generally, consultation does not always reach everyone equally. An advisory committee, if found feasible, would complement existing processes by providing structured, practical advice, not decision-making powers. Others may worry about cost of bureaucracy. That concern is precisely why this motion asks for a feasibility report. Council retains full control over whether anything proceeds. And to be clear, this is not about division or special treatment. The stated objectives focus on cohesion, shared values, access and harmony, strengthening the whole community, not fragmenting it. Voting for this motion is simply voting to be informed before we decide. For these reasons, I support the motion and encourage councillors to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Councillor Berry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm tending to go with voting against it. So, like Councillor Freeman, my family were immigrants from the UK, so Scottish and English. My dad played soccer. He played in a team of mixed nationalities, predominantly Croatian and Scottish. I grew up in St Albans, very multicultural. Don't remember that any child, any parent, and we mixed in the community very well. It was Scottish, English, Croatian, Maltese, Italian, Scandinavian, and there was numerous others. I think I asked a question in council during last year about, because I was concerned about how our community was going, the Indian community coming through. I'm a bit concerned that we've predominantly been mentioning the Indian. There's many cultures in our shire as we speak. We've seen that at all the ceremonies, citizenship ceremonies. I think my question that I did ask council, and I went through officers, could you research, do we cover multiculturalism in our shire? And the answer, and we were all told it came back to all of us, that there, in all of our strategies, we have and are covering multiculturalism. So whilst I love the Indian community, I love what they do it well, and they're keeping their culture going, but so are other cultures as well. I'm concerned that possibly they might, take over a group like that. I'm satisfied that we cover multiculturalism in all our strategies, and there's options for people, and the strategies go out for community consultation. I'm not aware of any people speaking out of the community about a motion like this that we need to put in place. Everybody that becomes a citizen has the right now, as an Australian citizen, to talk about their culture, to do things in the community. Most of us have gone to all these Indian festivals, and they're fantastic, and I encourage them to continue. There's other groups that have other festivals as well. So I think, for me, I'm a bit concerned that we're just, trying to project to a group that we're concerned, but they're well entrenched in our community. they're all at our schools. You know, they go to our grammar school, they go to the public schools, they go to the Catholic schools. They are entrenched in our communities and welcome living in Australia. They're not trying to take over. They take on, I've talked to them about our cultures and things. They're willing to talk to about that. So, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that this motion is targeting because we've got the increased Indian community coming into the area. I love them. I think they're fantastic people, but I'm not sure that we're ready to put in place a specific meeting place for them because we hear about their culture all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Councillor Kerr?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is only going to be short. I'm of the opinion that if this notice of motion gets up, our officers will prepare a report and have cognizance to the queries that Councillor Tatchell has raised. And I think they are extremely important points and they need to be brought up. And if they're not brought up, when the report comes to council, I'll deal with it then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Is there any further councillors? Councillor Minari?
I had a question, if I can,
Yeah, no worries.
to Councillor Ward. Was there anyone, any resident in Moorabool, did they approach you about this at all? Or did you?
No, they approached me, Councillor Minari.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further councillors? Councillor Sullivan? Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
Mayor.
ma'am.
I would, yes, can you still hear me?
Yep.
I would speak against this motion. I see in the body of the report, and I'll take it as factual, that 14.2% of the residents of Moorabool were born overseas, and I think that's fair comment. I mean, even as Councillor Freeman has indicated, she herself is one of that percentage. There's so many others, but again, that's approximately 86% are actually born in Australia. If you take the flip of that reverse, I think, and all the migrants that have ever come into this country in the past and current add to the richness of this country, and I think no one is suggesting that they abandon their culture but I think it's important at this juncture in Australia, what's happening, we've seen in more recent times, the fabric of the country is actually sort of unravelling, which sort of concerns me and probably concerns a lot of people. I think, I think someone mentioned equitable access. If people in this shire aren't getting equitable access to something, I would like, they can ring me at any time they wish, because I'd be the first to advocate if someone is not getting equitable access, because everyone should be getting the same level of access and the same level as anyone else. I think we need to sort of try and bring people together, not highlight their differences, and that's what I think that's divisive if we sort of highlight the differences, because I think we should be promoting Team Moorabool and supporting Team Moorabool, everyone getting on in Moorabool, because you're on Moorabool, and where people's background is irrelevant. We need to say what we need to look to the future and to sort of try and unpick those, so these are different, this group, whatever they are. And I think that's divisive and doesn't add to the social cohesion going forward. I mean, we've seen nationally some of the issues that are coming out across Australia and playing out, and it's distressing to see that. And I do note that one of the, I think it's point 1 on the motion talks about interfaith issues. Well, one of the root causes, not necessarily, but of issues in the past are religiously based. And what happens in that situation? So I mean, I just think that we just need to sort of hold back on this for the time being and just sort of try and work out where we sit in this. I just don't think this is the way to do things, because I just think it's just promotes the differences rather than tries to highlight what we're all about, the shared values. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any further councillors? Councillor Ward, I get you to close off.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think it was interesting comments. I think the whole purpose of this notice of motion is to address some of the concerns that have been raised against this. I recognise, as the Resident Australia, the social division that's going on, and the tragedy that happened in Sydney before Christmas. You look across the Pacific, I think it's the Atlantic, to the US now. It's just tearing itself apart between the division that's grown between the left and the right. The purpose of preparing a report on the establishment, the benefits or otherwise, of establishing an intercultural advisory committee were brought to me by representatives of a multicultural group. This is not about one nationality, and it's not about citizens. It's about those living here. And there's no suggestion that they're not hardworking, but they did reach out and they said, how can we, as Team Moorabool, integrate better, and how can Moorabool, understand our cultures? The purpose of this Intercultural Advisory Committee, if it's approved, can't be decided next year when we have committees appointed. Because how could we appoint a committee when we don't know its objectives, its terms of reference or its roles or responsibilities? They have to be fleshed out, and they would be fleshed out in a report. How would the committee, if it was established, be comprised? So Councillor Tatchell was absolutely right. We didn't come up with representative committees or advisory committees or groups 20 years ago and say these are locked in. Those that are no longer had a role, we've removed, absolutely, as we should. But when we identify that 25.2% of our residents were born overseas or arrived in Australia the last 5 years, that far exceeds what it was in 1985 when I moved here. And representatives of these groups have come out and they want to exchange their cultures. And I, as a resident of Moorabool, I want to understand what exciting cultures they bring to the community. So this is all about social cohesion. It's not about promoting division. It's about bringing everyone together, as Councillor Sullivan said, into Team Moorabool. Councillor Berry is absolutely right. A lot of the new residents are well established, they're entrenched and they're doing well, but not all of them are. And the purpose and a goal of this Intercultural Advisory Committee be how do we help those? Just like we have a positive ageing group, how do we help our elderly? Just like we have a youth committee, how do we help our youth? And this is about establishing an Intercultural Advisory Committee that may be able to help 25.2% of our residents. And it's only going to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. We have a mover and a seconder. All in favour? Carried.
I'd like to call a Division 2, Mr Mayor, please.
All those in favour stand. Councillor Keogh, Councillor Bingham, Councillor Freeman, Councillor Ward and Councillor Venditti Taylor. All those against? Councillor Tatchell, Councillor Minari, Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Berry. Thank you. Moving along, notice of motion 16.4, notice of motion number 351, electric vehicle charging stations. Thank you, Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As can be seen from my report, EV sales nationally increased from 9.6% to 12%. This trend is only going to increase, especially with government incentives and a greater awareness of climate change. Presently, with no EV stations located between Ballarat and Melton, we are missing an opportunity to increase our daily visitor numbers uptake. If EV stations were located within easy walking distance of our Ballan and Bacchus Marsh shopping precincts, where we would be to encourage visitors to recharge, explore and spend locally, benefiting our traders and stimulating employment opportunities. Secondly, with an EV charging station located conveniently in Ballan and Bacchus Marsh, our residents who drive EVs would have an extra alternative to charge their vehicles. Leaving right-wing and left-wing politics aside, there is irrefutable evidence that climate change is real. an analysis of the polar bore log data with respect to carbon-12, carbon-13 and carbon-14 reveals an ever-increasing carbon content in our atmosphere that can only be attributed to human intervention. To adopt this notice of motion will flag to our community that we are serious about our environment. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Keogh. Is there anyone that will second that?
I've got a question,
Yep.
Mr Mayor. Questions of council officers, Mr Zudnut. I support one component of this. We could have left the whole climate change debate out of it, but I support in principle that we need EV chargers, and I know that I've talked about this with Mr Zudnut over the years, but a number of years ago, council resolved to include on a permit for the Ampol fuel station on Gisborne Road. As part of that permit, they were supposed to install EV chargers. So can I please have your comment on that and when we can expect EV chargers to be located at that petrol station?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, through yourself. The permit at Gisborne Road was issued in March 2020. The permit has got what we call a non-standard condition, and the non-standard condition provides or requires the provision of an electric vehicle station to be provided within 7 years. At that point in time, there were concerns in relation to the ability to obtain a provider for electric charging station to maintain and operate it. And secondly, they had to negotiate with the power supply company to make provision for the type of electricity or power they need. So they've been given 7 years, so the due date is next year, March. They have to provide that. And they had to provide, as part of the permit, they had to provide the indicative location and also provide some of the trunk infrastructure to be able to install that electric vehicle charging station.
Thank you for that. I've just got subsequent, Mr Mayor. So basically in two parts. One, is that trunk infrastructure already in place to transition to EV chargers? And secondly, if they don't meet that deadline, what sort of enforcement actions can we take?
Through Mr Chair. So what I had to provide, from memory, they had to provide what I call in the switchboard. They had to provide capacity for whatever needs to be installed. They also had to provide a conduit or a piping, and they had to make provision for a point where they can connect into the external network. If they don't comply with the condition by the due date, then obviously it becomes an enforcement matter, unless they can demonstrate that there is some concern in providing the external power supply, or whether they can demonstrate there's no interested party to provide that. And in that case, they'll have to potentially amend the permit. I may also add that it is now a growing tendency in commercial developments where, based on their own sustainability goals, increased demand, that some of these new developments, commercial developments, tend to start making provision for those future EV stations themselves.
Thank you. Councillor Minori.
I just have a question, if I could.
Yes.
For councillor Keogh. I just have a question. When you put your notice of motion in, were you supplied with the report that was written a few years ago?
Was I? Could you please give me the question again, please?
Yep. So when you submitted your notice of motion, did any officer supply you with the report that was written on this actual subject a couple of years ago?
No.
No?
No, they did not.
Okay, thank you.
Any councillors want to second that? Councillor Freeman. Any questions against or for? Councillor Tatchell.
We'll go again, so.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, you're right. Councillor Keogh. You're up, mate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, I think if we do not get a report in and depending on how the report goes, if it's possible to feasibly act on it, we're not holding our heads in the sand, and it's definitely an advantage to us and our community.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Keogh.
you.
Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm not against electric cars or dodgem cars or any sort of cars, really. Those who had that hot day a couple of weeks ago would realise that we don't have infinite power in terms of electricity. But
Flamethrowers.
yes, but someone who's been in road transport for 40 odd years and been exploring all the reasons why we're trying to save the planet, spent millions of dollars injecting urea into diesel engines and halving the life of them and pulling 16-litre engines out and putting something in that's a little bit more friendly to the ice caps. And all the way along, people like Mr Tesla keep telling me, don't worry, Touch, we're going to have electric trucks here one day and we'll be towing your road trains and B-doubles all around Australia, which is hilarious when you consider we don't have the infrastructure to provide that much electricity. And for those that are unaware, a study was done on a local brick carter that owns a few prime movers and locally lives in the bush, because keeping in mind that when these transmission towers go through, if they go through, that we get the power last, so we'll be the first ones to lose it. But ultimately, they were trying to convince him that because he doesn't run B-doubles, he could get away with electric trucks to do one load to Melbourne every day rather than two, and overnight bring them all home and plug them in. Now, the only problem is it would shut down Ballarat if he plugged his trucks in, let alone if he plugged a couple in, the whole street would be blacked out. And anyone who's been to Carlton lately will see all these electric leads coming across the footpath because planning didn't give them garages, so they're all running around with their double adapters. Look, I was going to ask Councillor Keogh how many electric cars he had, but that would be just rude because I'd have to answer the same. So, being a product of a V8 youth. But the reality is, in all seriousness, is we don't have enough power. And the infrastructure that's been put in place to power our towns in terms of the growth is barely going to cover that. But Councillor Keogh pulled out an amazing stat where we've gone to 12.6%. But when you divide that into electric vehicles versus hybrid vehicles, you'll find that most of the manufacturers that are still in the motoring industry that are left are all heading towards hybrids and hydrogen because of the very fact that China is continuing to put in coal-powered power stations for their electric car manufacturing plants to send them over here where we're going to have to run them off Honda generators because we haven't got enough electricity. So, I mean, all this is all very good and it's all very good to virtue signal about electricity, but the fact is that if you don't have the infrastructure in a country as big as Australia, I mean, imagine turning up at the Bursville pub an electric car. They'd be saying, we're struggling to run the fridge, mate. This whole process has been done to death. Yes, I agree we need some charging stations, and anyone who's had a look at around that we actually do. Well, I have noticed the one here is very rarely used, but anyhow, I'm not going to talk about that. I certainly won't be going to electric trucks in a hurry because I don't want to black out the land. Whilst I applaud Councillor Keogh future choice of vehicles. And I'm sure the Jaguar is not part of it. But I do note the Jaguar are going to go all electric very soon. But I'd also like to know how many times Jaguar have gone broke. So anyhow, God bless Mr Tesla, but to be honest, I think this is a waste of time and it's yet another notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this motion is not about committing to build EV chargers tomorrow. It is about doing the responsible thing today, preparing a business case so council can make an informed evidence-based decision. This motion is low risk and high value. We are not approving construction, funding or contracts. We are simply asking for a report that looks at feasibility, costs, delivery models and partnerships. Good governance means understanding the options before ruling them in or out. Voting against a report is choosing to stay uninformed. The data shows this isn't a future trend, it's happening now. EVs now make up over 12% of new car sales nationally, reaching nearly 16% in June 2025. 350,000 plus Australians already drive EVs. Victoria alone has over 50,000 registered EVs. This growth includes families, tradies, maybe not trucks, tourists and regional drivers, not just inner city commuters. If Moorabool does not plan for this shift, we risk being left off the map as EV drivers plan their routes. There is currently no public EV charging station between Ballarat and Melton. That gap matters. EV drivers actively plan stops around charging availability. If they can't charge here, they don't stop here. Strategically placed chargers near Bacchus Marsh and Ballan shopping precincts would encourage drivers to stop, give them 30 to 60 minutes to shop, eat and explore, directly benefit local traders and hospitality businesses. This is about keeping visitor spending local, not letting it pass us by. Moorabool sits on key regional routes and already attracts day trippers, weekend visitors, pass-through traffic. EV infrastructure strengthens our role as a welcoming future-ready shire and supports state and federal transport and emissions strategies, positioning us well for external funding and partnerships. The report would explore co-investment with private providers, state and federal grants, power companies or retail partnerships. Council does not have to do this alone, but we need the analysis to understand what's possible. If you say this will cost too much, that's exactly why we need the business case, to understand costs before committing. EVs are still niche. At 12 to 16% of new sales and rising, EVs are already mainstream and infrastructure decisions lag years behind adoption. Council has bigger priorities. Economic development, tourism, sustainability and transport access are core council priorities, and this motion supports all four. This motion is about planning, not spending. It's about ensuring Moorabool remains competitive, connective and economically vibrant as transport changes around us. Voting for this motion is voting for informed decision-making, local economic opportunity and a future-focused Moorabool Shire. Before closing, there was mention of the Gisborne Road getting the EV at the petrol station. Well, I think that's totally inappropriate because there's nowhere for them to shop at that service station at the end of Clifton Drive. So I urge Council to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Councillor Bingham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak against this notice of motion. I'm very conscious that we spent a significant amount of time debating this item that could have been dealt with by one email, probably to the CEO to ask for the report that was handed a couple of years ago. This is just going to be a cut and paste report if this motion does go forward. As I said earlier on in the piece, I really want to stay away from the whole climate change and carbon emission hypocrisy of EVs. But the reality is that we do have EV cars in Australia, and yes, there is a need for EV chargers, but you don't create EV chargers by saying how great of an idea it is. How you do it is through the permit process, and that's exactly what we've done. If we want more EV chargers, well, then we take that into account the next time something else comes for us. The shopping centre down in Baxmarsh is not going to build EV chargers just because we told them to. That's not how it works. It's private property. So, as I said, I think after this meeting, the councillor should probably send the CEO or the acting CEO an email to request the report that was handed a couple of years ago and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bingham. Councillor Berry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I just have a question for officers. Do we actually have that report that was done a few years ago still?
Mr Jeffrey.
Through you, Mr Mayor, my recollection was we did a briefing, not necessarily a public report, but we still would have that information.
Very, Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Exhausting night. This notice of motion is not about climate change, and it's not about the capacity of the electricity network. It's not about Birdsville. It's not about the viability of electric trucks. It's about listening to our ratepayers and our businesses, because they've spoken to us and made their thoughts very clear. We have, as a group, the last 18 months done extensive work on our retail strategy. It came up often. Our local businesses don't want people to stop on the freeway at McDonald's and charge their vehicles. They want them to stop in town and go and buy a coffee and have a look at our retail businesses. That has come out in our retail strategy. Our visitor economy strategy, and we've all seen it, our visitor economy strategy talks often about attracting people into town with charging stations. And I'm sure it's going to be mentioned in the investment attraction strategy that Lee's drafting at the moment, because it came out in the consultation with our community. It was regularly mentioned. And finally, on top of the retail strategy and our Eco Dev strategy, it also got brought up at our local business advisory committee meeting that I attended with Councillor Tatchell before Christmas. So this is not about the capacity of the network. Let's not cloud it. It's not about climate change. This is what our ratepayers and our businesses are telling us they want.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Any further councillors? Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've listened very intently to the intelligent conversation that has been bandied around the room, so thank you for all that. I just basically asked the question, is this council core business? So I suppose I'd start with that premise. And part of the deal, it says a business case. Well, when you prepare a business case, there's an inferred, it's an inference that in fact you're going to fund something. And we've heard figures of sales of EV vehicles and what have you. I do note that the top 4 selling vehicles in Australia now, only one is actually a hybrid. So it's not actually a proper EV vehicle in that sense. And I guess the thing is, if growth is so great in this area, why would council be involved in setting things up? Surely there'd be enough demand by private investment to set these things up. And I note that somebody said, which is quite interesting, that people would come in, charge up their car, and then wander around and get a cup of coffee while it's actually going on. There is one at Bunanyong, and I happened to be in Bunanyong a few months ago. And whilst I was there was one car plugged into this thing for about 20 minutes, and it was still there when I left. And I thought to myself, well, if you were a passing traveller and you want to just fill up and get on your way to Adelaide, you know, the idea that you're going to hang around the town for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, And that's if there was no one in front of you to actually charge up your vehicle is a bit fanciful. I understand tourists, people are just coming into the town, etc. So I don't necessarily see the direct correlation between a charging station and the economic benefit it's going to bring to town. I hear the argument, but I just can't see how it stacks up in reality. So I do remember that report that came to council some years ago, but council decided not to do it. So I suppose the thing is do we see it as our other operator in this sort of space? So it's not, I don't think it's a core business. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any further councillors? Councillor Keir to wrap it up.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe that by getting a councillor's a report, it doesn't mean I don't see it as a way that we're going to do it. I would be far more would far prefer an entrepreneur to come along and do it. All we want to do is see if there is a business case available for something like that to happen. Now, if there is a business case by us not going along with it, I believe that we are missing a golden opportunity. As Councillor Freeman was saying, the amount of people now that organise their trip on where they can get an EV station. And to me, I can see it's going to help our traders, and it's also good for our tourism, and it's also good for our employment, for extra employment for young folks. And we can poke our heads in the sand and say that all the negatives about EVs and carbon pollution of the environment, but may I leave you with this little anecdote. If you take a look at a photograph of Fifth Avenue in the year 1895, I think there's a photograph with 5,000 horses in it, and the amount of horse manure that is on the roads. And there's another photograph in 1915. There is no horses, and it is about 2,000 Model T Fords. Now, we can keep our head in the sand and ignore it. We don't want any EV vehicles, but we're missing out on a golden opportunity. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. We have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Keogh and Councillor Freeman. All those in favour? All those against? Carried.
Division.
For all those in favour, stand. Councillor Keogh, Councillor Tatchell, Councillor Minari, Councillor Berry, Councillor Freeman and Councillor Ward. And Councillor Vendetti Taylor. All those against? Councillor Tatchell, Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Bingham. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Keogh.
Did Councillor Tatchell get counted twice then?
We'll remove that. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Thank you very much. There are no notices of rescission. With the Mayor's reports, I'd like to congratulate all the new Australians on Australia Day, all the award winners, and it was a fantastic day. I'd like to congratulate the staff for all the hard work that they put in. It's probably something that I'll remember for the rest of my life when you look up and you see so many happy people in the room, and it was such a fantastic day. So I congratulate Council on the day and everyone that attended, and I say well done to everyone. With the Mayor's report, I'll get someone to move that. Councillor Bingham. Second, Councillor Tatchell. All in favour? Carried. Moving on, councillors' reports. Councillor Sullivan.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. There was, my report would have been forwarded through to council, I believe, but there's just one matter I would like to highlight, if I may. On Friday the 19th of December, I attended the Scottsburn Fire 10-year event at Clarion, which was attended by yourself and also Councillor Keogh. But the takeaway from that was, I think the positive support for council over that 10-year period and the work undertaken by Cherie Graham, the Municipal Emergency Manager, was really warmly welcomed by the community there, because basically from the initial fire itself, and all the work that's been done over the period, and in that 10-year period, it's been really warmly welcomed, and it was well supported by the council, and I think it's sort of really, I'd like to congratulate our staff, particularly Cherie and her team, for the work that they have done, because it really reflected well on the council. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Well said, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I also agree with Councillor Sullivan's comments. I have no more to report. I've put in writing my report and have no more.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Councillor Tatchell.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd too like to just comment on the Australia Day ceremony, and of course, Councillor Berry's hat. It was magnificent. But anyhow, more of that. I'll just say this, what a great job the Mayor and David did. I mean, no one understands that the very first job you do as a new Mayor is a citizenship ceremony full of people, and you've never done one before, and all of a sudden the place is chocker. And if you get it wrong, you're in all sorts of bother. So I take my hat off. I thought you just did a fantastic job, and it's a very complex thing, but it was a great show. It was a good band, and I think most of the people enjoyed it immensely. So, well, I say, well done, you too. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell, and the 5 times that you've done it too. Councillor Minari.
Nothing to report, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Bingham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's certainly been a busy summer, but in a council perspective, very quiet for me. But on Australia Day, like many councillors and obviously yourself, I attended the citizenship ceremony at the public hall, and you know it does feel you a bit of a sense of pride, and you know you feel honoured to be part of, especially as an elected representative. You feel honoured to be part of this democracy that, you know, these people have, you know, upended their life and travelled over the seas to come join, you know, your democracy. So you feel really proud to be Australian. And, you know, many people, you know, we grow up, obviously, you know, in Australia, and we start to take for granted the things, you know, that we're brought up to. You know, we hear that, you know, Australia's a lucky country, the land of opportunity, the golden country. We really take that for granted until you go overseas and you really see how great Australia is. Yeah, you know, it reminds you of how lucky we are actually to be born in Australia in the first place. But yeah, congratulations to all those that have finally become citizens, and the next lot of citizens that will come through very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bingham. Councillor Berry.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and Councillor Tatchell, my hat's called a bucket hat. It's a very famous Aussie bucket hat with the flag printed on it. So thank you for that compliment. I just wanted to briefly touch on the Peri-Urban Councils Victoria. We haven't had a meeting yet, but it's coming up this Friday. It is an induction presentation, so there's quite a few different people will be attending on Friday. We will vote a new chair. A new chair will be elected. We briefly will touch on items that we will cover.
Maybe the old chair.
Well, we'll see what happens. I have put my hand up again. We'll see what happens. I haven't heard about anybody else standing, but we'll briefly touch on our governance, the calendar meetings for the year, and delegations, so state and federal delegations, policy development, policy priorities for 2026. A new subject we will be approaching is on public transport, position paper. So that will be interesting, coming from all peri-urban councils. Tonight, also, if anybody's interested, Mr. David Jackson's the acting CEO, just gave us a brief update on the new TribeMind AI tools that councillors can avail themselves to. If you actually do, I tested it on the peri-urban stuff, so if you go in, I asked the question, do we have links to Peri-Urban Councils Victoria? And it actually brought up quite a bit of information on advocacy and government interaction, challenges and funding, strategic planning and collaboration, decisions and outcomes, and follow-up actions. So that, and I'm available at any time if anybody's got any questions about Peri-Urban, happy to answer any questions. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I've said enough tonight, so no further business. I have handed in my meetings that I've attended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. Councillor Ward.
Nothing to report, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'll call for any urgent business. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just given the copious amount of time we spent on notice of motion tonight, I just have a question perhaps to the acting CEO before he leaves the role. Could we actually get a cost of the complete, say the last completed 10 notices of motions by councillors, that is in officer time, resources, etc. And also perhaps the opportunity costs of doing these motions, notice of motions, just to sort of bring it to fruition when they come back. Is that something, I don't expect an answer now, but is that something that could be done, or maybe you can leave it to the CEO when he returns, leave it on his desk on the 11th when he returns. But I'd be very interested to know what the cost of these notice of motions are in officer time, resources, and also the opportunity costs that come along when officer's time is diverted.
Point of order, Mr Mayor. I'm not sure that's urgent business.
Are we taking the question, Joe?
Through the chair, it's definitely not urgent business, and as you're aware, urgent business requires councillors by unanimous vote to be allowed at this meeting. So I take it, Councillor Sullivan, that it was a comment rather than an introduction of urgent business.
Well, perhaps I'll do it as a notice of motion, Mr Governors.
Through the chair, I'm sure with sufficient notice and in keeping with the rules, that's totally allowable.
Well, I'm all for keeping the rules, Mr Governors, as you well know, but I think it is, I make the point that it is quite pertinent that there is a lot of resources tied up in this, and I'd like to know what the cost is. So I will frame a notice of motion myself, which will actually be a lovely segue, actually, when one thinks of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Keir, any urgent business?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have no urgent business.
Thank you. Councillor Tatchell, any urgent business?
No urgent business for me, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor Minari.
No urgent business, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Minari. Councillor Bingham.
No urgent business, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bingham. Councillor Berry.
No urgent business, thanks, Mr Mayor, but I too am concerned with officers doing so many reports and the time taken out of their days. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman.
No urgent business. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Freeman. Councillor Ward.
No urgent business, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, moving along to clear the gallery. And we'll move into a closed meeting, and we'll have a 5-minute break.
Yeah, I'll move.
Councillor Bingham, Councillor Minari, all in favour? Thank you. Carried. Move us into the closed session. Councillor Bingham. I'll get a second to move into closed business. Councillor Berry. All in favour? Carried.